The doorbell rang at 7:15 in the morning. I wasn't expecting anyone. I pulled on a robe and walked through the quiet of my apartment, past the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlook the city, past the kitchen where my coffee was still brewing, and opened the door without looking through the peephole because I thought maybe it was a package or a neighbor with a question. It wasn't. Standing in my hallway was my brother. Behind him was a woman I'd never seen before, holding a clipboard and wearing a blazer that looked too crisp for a Saturday morning. Behind her were two more people, a couple, both in their 50s, both dressed like they were about to tour a museum exhibit, and leaning against the wall with his arms crossed and that familiar half-smirk on his face was my father. My brother spoke first. His voice was too casual, like we'd planned this. "Hey," he said, "we need to talk." I looked past him at the strangers. The woman with the clipboard smiled at me. It was the kind of smile people give when they're trying to sell you something you don't want. "Good morning," she said brightly. "I'm Karen Stillwell with Prestige Realty. Your family mentioned you might be open to discussing the sale of your home." I blinked. I didn't move. I just stood there in my doorway, holding the edge of the door like it was the only solid thing left in the world. I looked at my brother, then at my father, then back at the realtor. I didn't say anything yet because I was trying to understand what was happening, not emotionally, logically. Why were there strangers in my hallway? Why was there a realtor? Why was my father smiling like he'd won something I didn't know we were competing for? My brother shifted his weight. "Look," he said, "we know this is sudden, but we've been talking about it for weeks. You weren't answering our calls, so we figured we'd just come over and handle it in person." Handle it. That phrase landed in my chest like a stone. I looked at the realtor again. She was still smiling, but now her eyes were flicking between me and my brother, like she was trying to figure out who was actually in charge here. The couple behind her were whispering to each other. The man pointed subtly toward the living room, like he was already imagining his furniture in it. My father finally spoke. His voice was calm, measured, the way it always was when he wanted to sound reasonable. "We're doing this for Mom," he said. "She needs the money. And you're sitting on a place you barely use. It's just logical." Logical? I felt my jaw tighten. I still hadn't said a word. My brother took a step forward like he was trying to close the space between us, trying to make this feel more intimate, more familial. "Dad's right," he said. "Mom's medical bills are piling up. We all need to contribute. You've got the most equity here. It just makes sense." I looked at him. Really looked at him. His face was earnest, like he believed what he was saying. Or maybe he'd just practiced it enough that it sounded true. I glanced at my father. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking past me, into my apartment, like he was already calculating square footage and resale value. The realtor cleared her throat gently. "If I could just step inside for a moment," she said. "I can walk everyone through the comps in the building. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at the market value." She took a step forward. I didn't move. She stopped. I finally spoke. My voice came out quieter than I expected, but steady. "I didn't agree to this." My brother's face tightened. "We told you about it." "No," I said. "You didn't." He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. My father's smirk deepened just a little. He knew I was right. But he also knew that didn't matter to him. The realtor's smile faltered. She glanced at my brother. "I was under the impression this was a family decision," she said carefully. "It is," my father said firmly. "She's just being difficult." Difficult. That word hung in the air. The couple behind the realtor exchanged a look. The woman tugged on the man's sleeve. "Maybe we should come back," she murmured. "No," my father said sharply. "You're already here. Let's just get this done." I looked at him, then at my brother, then at the strangers standing in my hallway like they had a right to be there, and I realized something that made my stomach turn cold. They didn't think I had a choice. They thought the decision had already been made. They thought showing up with a realtor and buyers and a plan would pressure me into compliance. They thought I would fold. I didn't fold. I stepped back, just one step, and I said very calmly, "No." My brother blinked. "What?" "No," I repeated. "You need to leave." The realtor's smile disappeared entirely now. She glanced at my father like she was expecting him to fix this. He didn't move. He just watched me with that same calm expression, like he was waiting for me to finish throwing my tantrum so the adults could get back to business. My brother's voice rose slightly. "You're not even going to hear us out?" "I already heard you," I said. "You want to sell my home without asking me. You brought strangers into my hallway. You ambushed me at 7 in the morning. So no, I'm not going to hear you out. I'm asking you to leave." The man in the couple behind the realtor cleared his throat. "I think we should go," he said quietly to his wife. "This doesn't feel right." The realtor turned to them quickly. "I'm sure we can work this out," she said. "Just give us a moment." But the couple was already backing toward the elevator. The woman looked at me with something like sympathy, or maybe pity. I couldn't tell. They disappeared down the hall. The realtor stood there for a moment longer, clutching her clipboard like it might protect her from the awkwardness. Then she looked at my father. "Mr. Brennan," she said, "I think maybe we need to reschedule." My father didn't look at her. He was still looking at me. "You're making a mistake," he said. I didn't answer. I just held the door, waiting. My brother stepped closer. His voice dropped, trying for something softer. "Just think about Mom," he said. "Please." "I am thinking about Mom," I said, "and I'm also thinking about the fact that neither of you asked me. You just decided." "Because we knew you'd say no," my father said flatly. There it was, the truth, not hidden, not softened, just laid out like it didn't matter. "We knew you'd say no, so we did it anyway." I nodded once. "Okay," I said. "Then you know why I'm saying it now." My brother looked at my father. "Dad," he said. "Maybe we should go," my father interrupted. His voice was hard now. "We're going." He turned and walked toward the elevator without looking back. My brother hesitated. He looked at me like he wanted to say something else, something that might fix this. But he didn't. He just followed my father. The realtor lingered for a second longer. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I didn't realize this wasn't agreed upon." I nodded. "It's fine," I said. "But you should go." She did. The hallway went quiet. I closed the door and stood there with my hands still on the handle, my heart pounding in my chest, my mind racing through everything that had just happened. They'd brought buyers. They'd brought a realtor. They'd walked into my home like it was already theirs to sell. I walked back into my apartment and picked up my phone. My hands were shaking now, not from fear, from anger. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I was looking for, my attorney. I hadn't spoken to him in over a year, not since the estate paperwork after my grandmother passed, but I needed him now. The phone rang twice before he picked up. "This is David." "David," I said, "it's me. I need your help." He must have heard something in my voice because his tone shifted immediately. "What happened?" I told him. All of it. The realtor, the buyers, the ambush, the way my father had stood there like he owned my life. David didn't interrupt. He just listened. And when I finished, there was a long pause. Then he said very carefully, "Did you sign anything?" "No," I said. "Good," he replied. "Don't. Not a single piece of paper. Not even something that looks harmless. Do you understand?" "I understand," I said. "I'm going to make some calls," he said. "I need to check something. Stay by your phone." He hung up. I stood there in my living room, staring out at the city, trying to process what had just happened. My coffee had gone cold. I poured it out and made a new cup, my hands still unsteady. I kept replaying the look on my father's face, not the anger, the certainty, like he'd already won, like my objection was just a formality. My phone rang. I grabbed it. "David." "Okay," he said. "I checked the county recorder's office. There's nothing filed under your property yet, but there was an inquiry this morning." "An inquiry?" "Someone accessed the records," he said. "Pulled up your deed information, ownership details, tax records. It was flagged because it came from an attorney's office." "Which one?" I asked. He gave me a name. I didn't recognize it. But then he added, "The same office your father uses." My stomach dropped. So he was already planning this. "It looks that way," David said. "And if he's moved this far already, he's not going to stop just because you said no this morning." "What do I do?" I asked. "First," he said, "we put a protection on your property. I'm filing a document with the recorder's office that flags your deed. If anyone tries to file anything related to a sale or transfer without your verified signature and presence, it'll get blocked automatically." "Can you do that?" "I'm doing it right now," he said. "It'll be in the system by this afternoon." "Second, you need to check your mail, physical and digital. If they're planning something, they might try to intercept documents or use old signatures." "I'll check," I said. "And third," he said, "you need to be ready for them to escalate." "Escalate how?" "Pressure," he said. "Guilt. Maybe they'll bring your mother into it. Maybe they'll try to claim you're being selfish or unreasonable. Maybe they'll threaten legal action even if they don't have grounds. People do a lot of things when they feel entitled to someone else's assets." I swallowed. "Okay, call me if anything changes," he said, "and don't talk to them without me." I hung up. My apartment felt different now. Not safe, not mine. Like something had been violated even though they'd never made it past the threshold. I walked to my mailbox in the lobby, unlocked it. Inside were bills, some junk mail, and a thick envelope from an attorney's office. Not David's, the one my father used. I opened it right there in the lobby. Inside was a letter, typed, formal, addressed to me. It said that due to family financial obligations and shared estate considerations, a proposal was being made to liquidate certain assets to cover medical expenses for my mother. It listed my apartment as one of those assets. It said that while my cooperation was preferred, legal remedies were available if necessary. Legal remedies. I read the letter 3 times. Then I took a photo of it and sent it to David. My phone rang 30 seconds later. "This is harassment," he said immediately, "and it's a bluff. They have no legal standing to force you to sell." "Then why send it?" I asked. "Because they're hoping you don't know that," he said. "They're hoping you'll panic and agree just to avoid a fight." "I'm not agreeing," I said. "Good," he replied. "Forward me the envelope too. I want the postmark and the return address. We're documenting everything." I did. Then I went back upstairs. I locked my door. I sat on my couch and tried to think. My mother's medical bills. That part was probably true. My mother had been sick for years. Chronic illness, expensive treatments. I'd offered to help before. They'd refused, told me they had it handled, told me not to worry. So why now? Why this? My phone buzzed, a text from my brother. "We need to talk, please." I didn't respond. Another text. "I know you're mad, but this is bigger than you, bigger than me." I stared at the words, then I typed back, "You brought strangers to my door without asking. That's not bigger than me. That's against me." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again, then nothing. I put my phone down. I made myself eat something even though I wasn't hungry. I showered. I tried to work. I couldn't focus. My mind kept circling back to the same question. What would they do next? The answer came 2 days later. My mother called. I almost didn't pick up. But some part of me, some old ingrained part that still wanted to believe my family could be reasonable, made me answer. "Hello?" Her voice was soft, tired. "Sweetheart," she said, "can we talk?" I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just waited. "I know your father and your brother upset you," she said. "I wasn't part of that. I didn't know they were going to show up like that." I closed my eyes. "Okay. But I need you to understand something," she continued. "I'm scared. The bills are more than we thought. We're drowning, and I don't want to burden you, but we're running out of options." There it was, the guilt, delivered gently, wrapped in fear, designed to make me feel like saying no meant I didn't care if she suffered. I took a breath. "Mom," I said, "I offered to help before. You said no." "That was different," she said. "How?" She hesitated. "Because we thought we could handle it, and now you can't," I said. "So instead of asking me for help, you tried to sell my home without telling me." Silence. "Mom," I said, "do you understand how that feels?" Her voice cracked slightly. "I'm just trying to survive," she whispered. "And I'm trying to keep my home," I said. "Those things don't have to be in conflict." She didn't respond right away. Then she said, very quietly, "Your father thinks you won't help unless we force you." "Is that what you think?" I asked. Another pause. "I don't know," she admitted. I felt something crack in my chest, not anger, sadness, because in that moment I realized my mother didn't know me at all, or maybe she'd stopped trying to. Maybe to her I was just an asset, a resource, a solution to a problem. "I'll help," I said, "but not like this, not by selling my home. I'll contribute what I can afford, but I need you to tell Dad to stop." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I'll try." "That's not good enough," I said. "You need to tell him to stop." "I'll talk to him," she said. We hung up. I didn't believe her, not because she was lying, because she was weak, because my father had always been louder than her, always been more certain, and when it came down to it, she would choose his certainty over my boundaries. I was right. 3 days later, I got a call from the building manager. "There's someone here asking about your unit," she said. "They claim they're family. They're asking for access." "Don't give it to them," I said immediately. "I won't," she replied, "but I wanted you to know." "Thank you," I said. I called David again. "They tried to get into my apartment," I said. "Through the building?" he asked. "Yes." "Okay," he said. "That's trespassing if they succeed. I'm sending a letter to your building management. And I'm sending one to your father's attorney. This needs to stop." "What if it doesn't?" I asked. "Then we go to court," he said, "and we get a restraining order." A restraining order. Against my own family. The words felt surreal, but also necessary, because they weren't acting like family. They were acting like creditors, like I owed them something I'd never agreed to. The restraining order took 2 weeks to process. 2 weeks where my phone rang constantly. My brother, my father, numbers I didn't recognize that turned out to be relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, all of them with the same message. "Your mother needs you. Family takes care of family. How can you be so selfish?" Selfish. That word kept coming up, like wanting to keep my own home was an act of cruelty, like boundaries were betrayal. I stopped answering calls. I stopped checking voicemails. I told David to handle everything. And he did. He sent letters. He filed motions. He made it clear that any further attempts to access my property or coerce me into selling would result in legal consequences. The hearing for the restraining order was on a Thursday morning. I arrived early. David met me in the hallway outside the courtroom. He was holding a folder thick with documents. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "I'm fine," I lied. He nodded like he knew better but wasn't going to push. "They're going to argue that this is a family matter," he said, "that court intervention is unnecessary. They're going to say you're overreacting." "Am I?" I asked. He looked at me seriously. "They brought strangers into your hallway to sell your home without your permission. They tried to access your apartment without your knowledge. They've been harassing you for weeks. No, you're not overreacting. You're protecting yourself." I nodded. "Okay." The courtroom doors opened. We walked inside. It was smaller than I expected. Sterile, fluorescent lights overhead, rows of wooden benches, a judge's bench at the front. My father was already seated on the other side of the room with his attorney. My brother sat beside him. My mother wasn't there. I didn't know if that was a relief or a disappointment. My father looked at me when I walked in. His expression was blank, not angry, not sad, just empty, like I was a stranger. My brother didn't look at me at all. He stared at his hands. The bailiff called the case. We stood. The judge entered. An older woman with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun and reading glasses perched on her nose. She sat. We sat. She opened the file in front of her and read silently for a moment. Then she looked up. "This is a petition for a restraining order," she said, "filed by the petitioner against her father and brother. Allegations include harassment, attempted unauthorized access to property, and coercion related to a real estate transaction. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor," David said. The judge looked at my father's attorney. "Counselor?" The attorney stood. A man in his 60s with an expensive suit and a voice that sounded like he'd spent his career in courtrooms. "Your Honor," he said, "this is a family dispute that has been unnecessarily escalated. My clients deeply care about the petitioner and are simply trying to navigate a difficult financial situation involving medical expenses. There has been no harassment, no coercion, just family members trying to communicate." The judge's eyes flicked to me, then back to the attorney. "Trying to communicate by bringing a realtor and potential buyers to her residence unannounced?" The attorney hesitated. "That was a misunderstanding," he said. "My clients believed there had been prior discussions." "Had there been?" the judge asked. "Not formal ones," the attorney admitted, "but they believed the petitioner was aware of the family's financial needs." The judge looked at David. "Counselor?" David stood. "Your Honor, the petitioner was not aware, was not consulted, and made it clear immediately that she did not consent. Despite this, the respondents continued to contact her, continued to pressure her, and attempted to gain access to her residence through building management. We have documented all of this: phone records, text messages, witness statements from the building manager." He placed the folder on the table. The judge gestured for the bailiff to bring it to her. She opened it, read. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her eyebrows lift slightly at one point. When she looked up, she directed her attention to my father. "Mr. Brennan," she said, "did you bring a real estate agent to your daughter's home without her prior consent?" My father stood slowly. "Yes," he said, "but I had a good reason." "What reason?" the judge asked. "My wife is ill," he said. "We have significant medical debt. My daughter has substantial assets and has refused to help." "Refused?" the judge repeated. "Yes," my father said. The judge looked at me. "Is that accurate?" I stood. "No, Your Honor. I offered to help financially within my means. I was told it wasn't necessary. Then I was ambushed with a plan to sell my home without my knowledge or consent." The judge nodded slowly. She looked back at my father. "Mr. Brennan," she said, "your daughter's assets are her own, correct?" "Yes," he said stiffly. "And she is under no legal obligation to liquidate them on your behalf, correct?" A pause. "Correct," my father said. "Then why did you attempt to involve third parties in the sale of her property?" My father's jaw tightened. "I thought if she saw how serious the situation was, she would reconsider." "By bringing strangers to her door?" the judge asked. My father didn't answer. The judge closed the folder. She looked at David, then at my father's attorney, then at me. "I'm granting a temporary restraining order," she said. "The respondents are to have no contact with the petitioner, no phone calls, no text messages, no third-party communication, no attempts to access her residence or her property. This order will remain in effect for 6 months, at which point we will review." My father's attorney stood quickly. "Your Honor, 6 months is excessive for what amounts to a family disagreement." The judge's expression hardened. "Counselor," she said, "your clients attempted to involve strangers in the sale of property they do not own. That goes beyond a disagreement. That borders on fraud." The word fraud hit the room like a slap. My brother flinched. My father's face went red. The judge continued, "If the respondents violate this order in any way, they will be held in contempt. Do you understand?" My father's attorney nodded tightly. "We understand, Your Honor." The judge looked at me. "If they contact you, you call the police immediately. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor," I said. "Court is adjourned." The gavel came down. I stood. My legs felt weak, but I didn't let it show. David gathered his papers. My father and his attorney were already walking toward the exit. My brother finally looked at me. Just once. His face was pale. He looked like he wanted to say something, but he didn't. He just followed my father out. David touched my arm gently. "You did the right thing," he said. I nodded. It didn't feel right. It felt necessary. There's a difference. We left the courthouse. The sunlight outside felt too bright. I sat in my car for a long time before I started the engine. My phone was silent. No calls, no texts. For the first time in weeks, no one was demanding anything from me. It should have felt like relief. It felt like grief. I drove home, parked in my building's garage, took the elevator up, unlocked my door. Everything was exactly as I'd left it. Quiet, empty, safe. I walked to the windows and looked out at the city. From up here, everything looked small, manageable, like problems were just tiny shapes moving far below. But I knew better. Problems don't stay far away. They find you. They knock on your door at 7 in the morning. They bring strangers. They test your boundaries until you enforce them. And even when you win, even when a judge sides with you, it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like loss. I made tea. I sat on my couch. I tried to read, couldn't focus. My mind kept replaying moments. The look on my father's face when the judge said fraud. The way my brother wouldn't meet my eyes. The silence in the courtroom after the gavel fell. My phone buzzed. I tensed. But it was just David, checking in, making sure I got home okay. I texted back that I was fine. He replied with a thumbs up and a reminder to document any violations of the order. A restraining order, against my own family. The words felt surreal, but also necessary, because they weren't acting like family. They were acting like creditors, like I owed them something I'd never agreed to. I put my phone down. I thought about my mother, wondered if she knew what had happened today, wondered if my father had told her, wondered if she was angry at me, or angry at him, or just sad about all of it. I wanted to call her. I didn't. The restraining order didn't include her, but I knew any contact would just funnel back to my father. It always did. Days passed, then weeks. The silence was strange at first, unnerving. I kept expecting my phone to ring, kept expecting to find someone in my hallway when I came home. But there was nothing. The restraining order held. My father and brother stayed away. I started to relax, started to feel like maybe this was over. I should have known better. It was a Tuesday evening when I got the email, from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line said, "Urgent family matter." I almost deleted it, but something made me open it. Inside was a message, short, cold. "Your mother is in the hospital. Complications from her illness. If you care at all, you'll come. St. Mary's Medical Center, room 412. No signature, but I knew who sent it, my brother. Using a new email to get around the restraining order, technically not direct contact, technically a loophole. I stared at the screen. My chest felt tight. My mother was in the hospital. That part was probably true. They wouldn't lie about that, would they? I didn't know anymore. I didn't know what they were capable of. But if it was true, if she was really sick and I didn't go, I would never forgive myself. I called David, told him about the email. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "It might be legitimate, but it might also be a way to get you in a room with them." "I know," I said. "If you go," he said, "go during visiting hours. Stay in public areas. Don't go into any private rooms alone with them. And document everything. If they approach you, if they say anything that violates the order, you leave immediately and call the police." "Okay," I said. "Do you want me to come with you?" he asked. I thought about it. "No," I said. "If she's really sick, I don't want to make it about legal battles. I just want to see her." "Be careful," he said. "I will." I drove to the hospital. It was a 20-minute drive through evening traffic. I parked in the visitor lot, walked through the automatic doors into the fluorescent brightness of the lobby, checked the directory, 4th floor. I took the elevator up. The hallway was quiet, sterile, the smell of disinfectant and something else. Sickness, decay, the things hospitals try to hide but never quite can. Room 412 was at the end of the hall. The door was half open. I stood outside for a moment, listening. I heard voices. My father, my brother, talking quietly. I couldn't make out the words. Then I heard another voice, weaker. My mother. I pushed the door open. All three of them turned to look at me. My mother was in the bed. She looked small, fragile. Her skin was pale. Her eyes were tired. An IV ran from her arm to a bag hanging beside the bed. Monitors beeped softly in the background. My father stood near the window. His arms were crossed. His face was unreadable. My brother sat in a chair near the bed. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. My mother's face softened when she saw me. "Sweetheart," she whispered. I walked to the bed, ignored my father, ignored my brother. I took my mother's hand. It was cold. "Hi, Mom," I said softly. She squeezed my hand weakly. "I'm glad you came," she said. "Of course," I said. My father spoke. His voice was flat. "Took you long enough." I didn't look at him. "How long have you been here?" I asked my mother. 3 days, she said. "They're running more tests." "What happened?" She started to answer, but my father interrupted. "What always happens," he said. "Her condition got worse, because we can't afford the treatments she needs." There it was, the accusation, delivered like a scalpel. My mother's hand tensed in mine. "Richard," she said quietly, "please." He didn't stop. "If we'd been able to sell that property," he said, "we could have paid for everything. But you decided your apartment was more important than your mother's health." I finally looked at him. "I offered to help," I said. "You wanted my home. There's a difference." "It's the same thing," he said. "It's not," I replied. My brother stood up. His voice was tired. "Can we not do this here?" he said. "Please?" My father's eyes stayed locked on mine. "She needs to understand what her choices cost." "My choices?" I said. "You brought strangers to my door. You tried to sell my property without my consent. You violated boundaries until I had to get a court involved. Those were your choices, not mine." My mother's grip tightened on my hand. "Stop," she whispered. "Both of you, please." I looked down at her. Her eyes were wet. "I'm sorry," I said softly. "I didn't mean to upset you." "You didn't," she said. "You're here. That's what matters." My father made a sound, something between a laugh and a scoff. He turned away, looked out the window. My brother sat back down heavily. For a few minutes, no one spoke. The monitors beeped, the IV dripped. Somewhere down the hall, a nurse spoke to someone in a calm, professional tone. Then my mother said, very quietly, "I don't have long." I looked at her sharply. "What?" "The doctors told me," she said. "The treatments aren't working anymore. Maybe a few months, maybe less." My chest went cold. "Mom," I said. She smiled faintly. "It's okay," she whispered. "I've known for a while. I just didn't want to tell you like this." My brother's head dropped into his hands. My father didn't turn around. I felt tears burn behind my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. "Not yet. Not here." "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. "Because I didn't want you to feel guilty," she said. "I didn't want you to give up everything just because I'm dying." "You're not dying," I said, even though I knew it wasn't true. She squeezed my hand again. "Don't lie to me, sweetheart. I'm too tired for lies." I swallowed hard. "Okay," I said. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, "I need you to do something for me." "Anything," I said. "Forgive them," she whispered. "Your father, your brother. They're not bad people. They're just scared, and they don't know how to handle it." I didn't answer, because forgiveness wasn't something I could promise. Not yet. Maybe not ever. My father had crossed lines. My brother had stood by and let him. And now my mother was asking me to pretend it didn't matter, to smooth it over, to make peace for her sake. I looked at her face, at the exhaustion there, at the hope in her eyes, and I realized she wasn't asking for me. She was asking because she didn't want to die knowing her family was broken. She wanted to believe we could fix it, that love was enough. "I'll try," I said. It was the best I could offer. She smiled. "That's all I ask." I stayed at the hospital for another hour, sat beside my mother's bed while she drifted in and out of sleep. My father eventually left the room without saying goodbye. My brother stayed. We didn't talk, just sat in silence on opposite sides of the bed, listening to the machines beep and hum, watching our mother breathe. When visiting hours ended, a nurse came in gently and told us we needed to go. My mother was already asleep. I stood carefully, trying not to disturb her. My brother stood too. We walked out together, down the hallway, into the elevator. Neither of us spoke until we reached the parking lot. Then he stopped, turned to face me. His eyes were red. "I'm sorry," he said. I looked at him. "For what specifically?" He flinched. "For all of it. For showing up at your apartment, for not stopping Dad, for letting it get this far." I nodded slowly. "Okay." He waited like he expected more. When I didn't say anything else, he shifted uncomfortably. "She's really dying," he said. "The doctor said maybe 3 months, maybe less if the next round of tests come back bad." "I know," I said. "And Dad's scared," my brother continued. "He doesn't know how to process it, so he's angry instead. He's angry at the doctors, at the insurance company, at you, at himself, but mostly at the fact that he can't fix it." "That doesn't excuse what he did," I said. "I know," my brother replied quietly, "but maybe it explains it." I looked at him for a long moment. "You want me to drop the restraining order?" I said. It wasn't a question. He hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, I think it would mean a lot to Mom, to know we're not fighting, to know the family isn't completely broken." "And if I don't?" I asked. "Then we keep being broken," he said, "and she dies knowing it." That was the guilt, delivered plainly, wrapped in grief, designed to make me feel like I was the one choosing division, like I was the one keeping us apart. But I wasn't. I'd drawn a line, they'd crossed it, and now they wanted me to erase the line so no one had to acknowledge the crossing. "I'll think about it," I said. My brother nodded. "Thanks," he said. "That's all I'm asking." We stood there for another moment. Then he walked to his car. I walked to mine. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time before starting the engine. My mind was spinning. My mother was dying. My father was scared. My brother wanted peace. And I was stuck in the middle, trying to figure out what I owed them versus what I owed myself. I drove home, called David on the way, told him everything. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Do you want to drop the order?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me does, for her. But part of me knows that if I do, they'll take it as permission to start again." "You're probably right," David said. "Restraining orders work because they create consequences. Remove the order, and you remove the consequences. People don't change just because you ask nicely." "So what do I do?" I asked. "That's not a legal question," he said. "That's a personal one. I can tell you what's safest, what protects you, but only you can decide what you're willing to risk for your mother's peace." "I know," I said. "If you drop it," he continued, "we can always refile, but there will be a gap, a window where they can contact you, where they can pressure you, and if your mother passes during that time, you'll be vulnerable when you're grieving." I hadn't thought of that, but he was right. Grief makes people soft, makes boundaries harder to hold. If they came at me while I was mourning, I didn't know if I'd have the strength to say no. "I'll think about it," I said again. "Call me when you decide," David replied. I hung up. Parked in my building's garage, took the elevator up to my apartment. Everything was quiet, clean, untouched. I poured a glass of water, sat on my couch, stared at the windows. The city lights stretched out below me, endless and indifferent. My phone buzzed, a text from a number I didn't recognize. I opened it. It was my brother. Using a different number to get around the order again. The message was short. "Dad wants to talk. No pressure. Just thought you should know." I didn't respond. I set my phone down and closed my eyes. I was so tired. Not physically, emotionally. Tired of fighting. Tired of defending. tired of being the one who had to hold the line while everyone else got to be messy and demanding and forgiven. But I also knew what would happen if I let go. They'd push, they'd test, they'd find new ways to pressure me because that's what they'd always done. Love in my family wasn't unconditional, it was transactional. You gave, they took. And if you stopped giving, you stopped being family. I thought about my mother, about the look in her eyes when she asked me to forgive them, about the way her hand felt in mine, cold and fragile, about the fact that she was dying and there was nothing I could do to stop it, nothing except give her the illusion of peace, the pretense that we were okay. Was that worth it? Was a lie worth her comfort? I didn't know. I fell asleep on the couch trying to decide. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls, all from the hospital. My heart dropped. I called back immediately. The nurse who answered sounded tired. "Is this Natalie Brennan?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "What happened?" "Your mother had an episode last night," she said. "Her condition has worsened. The doctors are with her now. You should come." "I'm on my way," I said. I didn't change clothes, didn't brush my teeth, just grabbed my keys and ran. I made it to the hospital in 15 minutes, parked illegally, didn't care, ran through the lobby to the elevators, 4th floor, room 412. The door was closed this time. A doctor stood outside talking quietly to my father and brother. I walked up. The doctor looked at me. "Family?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "I'm her daughter." He nodded. "Your mother is stable for now," he said, "but she's very weak. We've increased her medication to manage the pain. She's conscious but drifting. You should prepare yourselves." Prepare ourselves. Medical speak for she's dying soon. "Can I see her?" I asked. "Of course," the doctor said, "but keep it brief. She needs rest." I walked into the room. My mother looked worse than yesterday. Her skin was gray. Her breathing was shallow. The monitors beeped faster now, erratic. I walked to her bedside, took her hand again. Her eyes opened slowly. "Sweetheart," she whispered. "I'm here," I said. She smiled faintly. "Good." We didn't talk much. She was too tired. I just sat there, holding her hand while she drifted. My father and brother came in after a few minutes, stood on the other side of the bed. We formed a triangle around her, a family portrait in a hospital room. Quiet, strained, held together by her presence and nothing else. Hours passed. Nurses came and went, checked vitals, adjusted medication, spoke in low, sympathetic tones. My mother woke occasionally, said a few words, then slipped back under. Each time she woke, she seemed farther away, like she was already leaving. It was late afternoon when she opened her eyes and looked at all three of us. Her gaze moved slowly from my father to my brother to me, then back to my father. "Richard," she whispered. He leaned closer. "I'm here." "Promise me," she said. Her voice was so weak I had to strain to hear it. "Promise me you'll take care of them." "I will," my father said. His voice cracked. She looked at my brother. "Be kind," she whispered. He nodded, tears running down his face. "I will, Mom." Then she looked at me. Her hand squeezed mine with surprising strength. "Don't let them take from you," she said. I blinked. "What?" Her eyes were clear now, focused. "Don't let them take what's yours," she repeated. "You worked for it. You earned it. Don't give it away just because they ask. Promise me." I stared at her. My father shifted uncomfortably. My brother looked away, and I realized in that moment that my mother knew. She'd always known. She knew what they'd tried to do. She knew what they were capable of. And she was telling me, even now, even as she was dying, to protect myself. "I promise," I whispered. She smiled. "Good girl," she said. Then her eyes closed. Her hand went slack in mine. The monitors beeped once, twice, then a long, steady tone. The nurse rushed in. My father stepped back. My brother made a sound like a sob. The nurse checked the monitors, checked my mother's pulse, then looked at us with sympathy. "I'm sorry," she said softly. My mother was gone. The funeral was 4 days later, a small service at a church my mother used to attend. My father arranged everything. I didn't fight him on it, didn't have the energy. I just showed up, sat in the front row, listened to a pastor who barely knew her talk about faith and peace and God's plan. My father spoke, talked about their 50 years together, about her strength, about how much he loved her. He cried. I'd never seen him cry before. My brother spoke too, talked about childhood memories, about how she always knew how to make things okay, about how much he'd miss her. No one asked me to speak. I didn't volunteer. I just sat there, numb, while people I barely knew came up to me afterward and said things like, "She's in a better place, and at least she's not suffering anymore." Platitudes meant to comfort. They didn't. After the service, there was a reception at my parents' house. I almost didn't go, but my brother asked me to, said it would mean a lot to Dad. So I went, stood in the living room where I'd grown up, surrounded by people eating casseroles and talking in low voices about how sad it all was. My father found me near the end. He looked older now, smaller, like grief had physically diminished him. "Can we talk?" he asked. I nodded. We walked out to the back porch, away from the crowd. He leaned against the railing, stared out at the yard. For a long time, he didn't say anything. Then he spoke. "I'm sorry," he said. I waited. "I shouldn't have done what I did," he continued. "With your apartment, with the realtor. I was desperate, scared. I thought if I could just fix the money problem, I could fix everything else. But I was wrong." I looked at him. "Are you apologizing because you mean it?" I asked, "or because Mom died and you feel guilty?" He flinched. "Does it matter?" "Yes," I said. He was quiet. Then he nodded. "You're right," he said. "Maybe I wouldn't have apologized if she was still here. Maybe I would have kept pushing. But she's not here anymore. And I don't want to lose you too." "You already did," I said quietly. "When you brought strangers into my hallway, when you tried to take what was mine. You lost me then." His jaw tightened. "So that's it?" he asked. "You're just done with us?" "I'm done being treated like an asset," I said. "If you want a relationship with me, it has to be on equal terms. You have to respect my boundaries. You have to stop treating me like I owe you something just because we're related." He stared at me. Then he nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. "I can try." "Trying isn't enough," I said. "You either do it or you don't." He looked down. "I understand." We stood there for a moment longer. Then I walked back inside, found my brother, told him I was leaving. He hugged me, tight, desperate. "I'll call you," he said. "Okay," I replied. I drove home, back to my apartment, back to the quiet, back to the safety of my own space. I stood at the windows and looked out at the city. My mother's voice echoed in my head. "Don't let them take what's yours." I wouldn't. Not anymore. Not ever again. My phone rang a week later. It was my father's attorney, the one who'd represented him in court. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Hello?" I said. "Miss Brennan," the attorney said. "I'm calling regarding your mother's estate." I sat down. "Okay. Your mother left a will," he said. "You're named as a beneficiary. There's a life insurance policy, and some personal items she wanted you to have." "How much?" I asked. "The policy is for $200,000, he said. "It's to be split between you and your brother." I went still. 200,000. The exact amount my father had claimed my sister owed, the exact amount he'd tried to force me to cover by selling my home. "Was my father aware of this policy?" I asked carefully. The attorney hesitated. "Yes," he said. "He was." "And he still tried to sell my apartment," I said. Silence. "I see," I said quietly. "Miss Brennan," the attorney started. I hung up. I sat there staring at my phone. My father had known, the whole time. He'd known there was money. He'd known my mother had prepared for this. And he'd still come after me, still brought strangers to my door, still tried to take my home. Not because he had to, because he wanted to. Because in his mind, my assets were easier to access than insurance paperwork. Because I was the path of least resistance. I called David, told him everything. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "That changes things." "How?" I asked. "Because it shows intent," he said. He knew there were other options. He chose to target you anyway. If he ever tries anything again, we can use this to demonstrate a pattern. "I don't think he'll try again," I said. "I think he's finally done." "Maybe," David said, "but keep the restraining order in place anyway, just in case." "I will," I said. We hung up. I sat in the silence of my apartment, thought about my mother, about her last words to me, about how even in death, she'd tried to protect me. The insurance money would go to my brother and me. My father would get the house. Everyone would get something, but she'd made sure I had a buffer, a shield, money that was mine alone. I never dropped the restraining order. My father never asked me to. We didn't speak for months, then a year, then longer. My brother called occasionally. We had brief, careful conversations. "How are you?" "I'm fine." "How's Dad?" "He's managing." "Okay. Talk soon." Surface level, safe. The kind of relationship you have with someone you used to know. I kept my apartment, kept my boundaries, kept my life exactly as I wanted it. And eventually, the anger faded, not into forgiveness, into indifference. I stopped caring what my father thought, stopped wondering if I'd made the right choice. Because I had. I'd chosen myself, and that was enough. Years later, I got a call from my brother. "Dad's in the hospital," he said. "Heart attack. He's asking for you." I thought about it, thought about going, thought about standing beside another hospital bed, holding another hand, pretending things were okay when they weren't. Then I thought about my mother's words, "Don't let them take from you." "I'm sorry," I told my brother. "I can't." He was quiet, then he said, "I understand." We hung up. I never saw my father again. He died 2 weeks later. My brother handled the funeral, sent me the details. I didn't go, sent flowers instead, a polite gesture, nothing more. When my brother called to tell me it was over, I felt nothing, no sadness, no relief, just a distant recognition that a chapter had ended, a chapter I'd closed long ago. Did I do the right thing? I still don't know. Maybe there's no right thing when it comes to family. Maybe there's just what you can live with. And I can live with this. I can live with the choices I made, the boundaries I kept, the home I protected. I can live with the fact that I said no, and I meant it. And I didn't apologize, not then, not now, not ever. Because some things are worth protecting, and sometimes the person you need to protect them from is the people who are supposed to love you most. My apartment is still mine. My life is still mine. And when I stand at those floor-to-ceiling windows and look out at the city below, I don't see regret. I see freedom. The freedom that comes from knowing exactly who you are and exactly what you won't compromise. Not for guilt, not for grief, not for anyone. That's the story. That's what happened when my family tried to take everything. And that's why I'm still here, still standing, still whole. Because I chose me. And I'd choose me again, every single time. I didn't answer, because forgiveness wasn't something I could promise. Not yet, maybe not ever. My father had crossed lines. My brother had stood by and let him. And now my mother was asking me to pretend it didn't matter, to smooth it over, to make peace for her sake. I looked at her face, at the exhaustion there, at the hope in her eyes, and I realized she wasn't asking for me. She was asking because she didn't want to die knowing her family was broken. She wanted to believe we could fix it, that love was enough. "I'll try," I said. It was the best I could offer. She smiled. "That's all I ask."